Okay, everybody. How are you? Are we okay here? I think I'll put it up on the screen as well so I can see what I'm doing more easily. As I say, an academic paper is a very controlled, very specific kind of structure, and we want to try and get it right. I'll be looking for three basic things. First thing is that you can research the topic. The second thing is that you can present the results of that research. The third thing is that you can present those results in a structured, coherent argument. An academic paper basically is an argument based on research. Okay, I think we've been understanding over the last few weeks how we research the topic, and we try to make some sort of argument. Okay, now that argument ideally has this kind of structure. So let me just go through these steps in a little bit more detail. Researching the topic. That means, obviously, you go to the research bases, you go to JSTOR, Literature Resource Center, you go to all of those, and you use the library. And as you're researching, you're trying to keep your eyes open for things that you're interested in, and especially you're trying to find out topics that are being debated by academics. And okay, the example I gave in the lecture was Hamlet. You're not doing Hamlet, you're doing Jane Eyre, but it's the same thing. I mean, is Bertha really mad, or what made her mad? Was it, genetic, eating, or is it the environment that she's been forced into? We don't really, we can talk about something like that, we can debate that kind of thing. Different critics may have different ideas about her madness. Is it fair that she's locked up in the attic like that? Is it reasonable? And so on. So there are going to be people disagreeing about it. And your aim is to look at the different arguments and decide, what you think is right. So you keep going back and checking with Bronte's text in this case until you're sure that you've got a logical argument, or you feel that you've got a logical argument and you've got research to help to support your argument. Okay? So firstly, you research the topic, and I'm expecting you to show me some ability in these things. I don't expect you to be perfect, but I expect you to try to show me your ability in those areas. Next thing, number 2 on the list, was the ability to present the results of the research, and something students very often decide right at the beginning what is the right answer. And that's a mistake, because if you research some more, you might think, oh, my first idea was not so good. Maybe, but you think, but kimita no de, I decided that, so I'll keep on arguing. No. If you change your mind, change your paper. Okay? Don't keep trying to argue something that you don't think is true anymore. Why? Okay? And be open about it. If you feel, that Bertha's not really mad, in this case, it's not quite the same as Hamlet, but if you think that her madness is just basically ideng, okay, genetic, and then you read some more arguments and you think, oh, it's not so simple. Okay, well, change your way of thinking, okay? Look at the research. Be kyakkanteki about the research, and don't try to decide everything at the beginning. Just like a scientist, okay, a scientist will do an experiment, but they're not going to decide what the result of the experiment is before they do the experiment. Okay, they're going to do the experiment, and then, if they're honest, they would report on the results of the experiment. So, in the same way, you should be reporting on the results of your research. You're not going to decide what you're going to prove and then pick out the things that agree with your position, and if it's a different opinion, mushi ni suru, okay, just no, that doesn't fit with my theory. That's not the right way to do it. Okay? You should look at all the arguments and pick out the best argument. Okay? So you're trying to give the best possible explanation covering all the information in your topic. And finally, number 3, you are trying to present the results in the shape of an argument. This is what I said it before, but an academic paper is basically an argument. You don't just say, I'm going to discuss this, I'm going to talk about this. What are you going to, well, I've said prove, but prove is a little bit strong. In literature, in bungaku, we don't exactly prove, 100%, but we try to prove. Okay, it's not 100%, but it's 95%. Okay, as dekiru dake. We're trying to show that it's true. Okay, prove is maybe sono kotoba. Maybe not the best word. Okay, we don't exactly prove it, but we're trying to. We're trying to persuade people that this is the right way to look at it. We're trying to persuade people this is a strong argument. So, if you're going to write a good academic paper, you've got to be able to think logically. You've got to be able to put the information together to make an argument. You've got to know what the different arguments are. You've got to know how to persuade your reader, convince your reader that your argument is correct. All very useful things in this life. If you can do those things with literature, you can do them for other things. When you go out into the big wide world, you'll have a skill, you'll have a talent, you'll have an ability. Okay? So working on that ability while you're writing your term paper, it's not just writing a paper for me, to make me shut up and you get a grade. No. It's actually, I think it really, if you do it properly, it's something that's useful for your life. Okay? So try and think about it. It's worth doing this. All right? It's a complicated process, and you can do it in different ways. And I just want to show a basic structure, and if you understand this structure, then later on you can experiment with different structures. You can do different ways. Okay? A lot of the academic papers that you read may be a little bit different from the structure that I'm showing you. There isn't just one way. All right? But if you do something like, I don't know, anything really, a hobby, like ikebana or shogi or, sports or anything, when you're doing the basic level, they'll say this is the basic way. And then when you get a more advanced, people say, yeah, but you could do different things. Okay, so it's the same here. I'm showing you the basic way. Later on, you can experiment and change things a bit. But try first to understand this basic structure, and then later on, when you become more advanced, you can change it a little bit, develop it a bit. Now, there are big differences between this structure and the kind of, for example, when you read JSTOR papers from 30 or 40 years ago, sugoku kawarimashita. It's changed a lot. And it's also changed, it's also quite different from Japanese structure, although more and more Japanese academics are starting to use this structure as well because it's a good structure. Okay, so you'll find it is more and more being the kind of sign that this is good writing, this is a good way to do it. So let's take a look at it. Basically, as I say, I did this paper, this presentation in Japanese, and I've left the Japanese headings here for now just to help you. I'll go through each one step by step. As it translates, I'll talk about it. So, how to write a literature paper. Well, first thing to notice is this is the end result. This is what people will read. They will read the first part, the second part, the third part, the fourth part, the fifth. They will start at the beginning, they will read to the end. Please notice that when you write it, you don't always start at the beginning and write through to the end. People often write, here, or here, or they write bara, and they put it together, they push it into that structure as they work. So don't think that you have to start here and write through to here. Okay? We read it like that, but when we write it, we may write it in a different kind of way. We might start with this bit, or we might start with something else, or we don't have to write it like this, but that's how it's going to look at the end when people read it. In fact, very often the introduction is the last thing that people write. Okay, because until they've done this, it's quite difficult to do this. Okay, because this is a kind of summary. To make that clear, until they've done the paragraphs 2, 3, and 4, the main body, it's quite difficult to put a summary of the arguments of those paragraphs. Some people do, they plan everything out before they start, and then they start writing. And some teachers like you to do it that way, because it's easier for them. But it's not always easier for you. So my recommendation is do it your way. Okay? And then you'll get the best results. So let's go through each step. We start with, obviously, it sounds stupid, but sometimes people forget to put the basic information at the top there. All right? Excuse me, what's your name, please? Okay? And another thing that people forget is, what's the title of your paper? Now, the title can be different types of title, but in a literature paper, the usual way of having a title is that it's the topic, the text, and the author. So it could be Marriage in Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, for example. Okay? Revenge in Hamlet by William Shakespeare, that kind of thing. That's a basic, again, it doesn't have to be like that, but that's a basic, typical way to do it. If you go on to the introduction, which is like your first paragraph, this is a 5-paragraph paper, a 1,000-word paper, the basic academic paper, this is your first paragraph. And that first paragraph will usually start with background information. And what kind of background information is that? It is not Charlotte Bronte was born on this, this place in this time. It is not Victorian England was do you tokoro. No, it's information connected with that title. Sore dake. All right? People think, 1,000 words. Okay. Jane Eyre is a very famous novel by Charlotte Bronte. Oh, that's only that's only 990 words now. Great. No, I don't want that, because that's atarimae. Okay? It's difficult to write these papers. It's not, and it's too easy just to say, Jane Eyre is a very famous novel by Charlotte Bronte. Anybody can say that. That's not researched information. That's not really what I'm looking for in an academic paper. So try not to give me that kind of very basic, atarimae kind of information. If you're writing about marriage in Jane Eyre, your background information should be about marriage, connected with Jane Eyre. That's all. We don't need to know if it's a famous novel. We don't need to know when it was written even, because that kind of basic information, you can suppose your teacher knows, or you can suppose your reader knows those very basic things. All right? Iwanakute ii. Ittara chotto mazui. And then you present your thesis. Your thesis is your ketsuron. It's the mokuteki of your paper. It's what you're going to show. Okay? It's the kind of kekyaku of your paper. It's the result. Okay? What are you going to show? Not, I will discuss marriage, but I will show that marriage in Jane Eyre is a negative thing. It's not a happy ending, for example, the marriage. For example. So it's quite difficult for Japanese people, because in Japanese you don't like to give too much information. You like to kind of hide information away. All right? And this is like sugu. It's like, huh? I have to say my conclusion at the beginning? Yes, please. Okay? Think about it like this. When you go to the station to get a train, the train will take you to Ikebukuro. Okay? And what will it say on the sign on the platform? It will say Ikebukuro. Right? It will tell you at the beginning. You don't go onto the platform and get on the train and say, Kono densha doko ikimasu ka? Where's this train going? And people say, oh, ja wakaranai, touchaku shite kara wakaru. No, that's no good to us, is it? We want to know. I want to know now, right? And it's the same when we read an academic paper. We want to know where it's going. Okay? So give that information as clearly as possible at the beginning of the paper. After explaining, where we're going, it's just like they say, the Konodensha Ikebukuro Yuki どこで止まる池袋だったら新宿okay どこか止まります okay it will tell you the different stations where it's going to stop all right so in the same way you're going to say well my first argument is going to be this is the reason these are the different reasons or arguments why I think this thesis is correct. And so you're just giving like a signpost that says this thesis goes to Ikebukuro. And the first reason is Shinjuku. And the second, do you understand what I'm saying? Something like that, all right? And then you come on to the first paragraph, and then you give a kwashi setsume of your, in the main body, you give a clear explanation of your first reason. You explain it in detail. Okay? So you give all the background, the different information, all the details. Okay, with the research references and everything that will explain why you do it, why you think that reason helps towards your thesis. And then of course in the next paragraph you explain the next reason in detail. Okay? And in the fourth paragraph, you explain the fourth reason. That's pretty logical, right? So you've explained the detail of your first argument, your first reason. You've explained the detail of your second reason. You've explained the detail of your third reason. The only thing you haven't done now is you haven't explained all the details about your thesis. That's what you're supposed to do in the conclusion. Now that's the most difficult one. Even academic, teachers, professors who publish papers have difficulty with this one sometimes. So I don't expect this to be perfect. This last one, as much as possible, try to do this. What often happens is people just say the same thing in the conclusion as they said here. But if we can try to polish it a little bit so we give a more detailed explanation of the thesis. That's the aim, all right? Don't worry if you can't do it perfectly on this first paper. I would be surprised if you did it perfectly on your first paper, okay? So that's the basic structure. Does it make sense? Yeah? We can kind of see that, we can kind of understand that. Okay. We seem to get through that fairly quickly, so perhaps I'll just quickly go on and talk about references a little bit. Footnotes and references are a really important way or part of an academic paper. They show the research sources, they show where those resources come inside the paper that you're using, and there are several ways of doing it. Now the two main styles are Chicago and MLA. And Eibun Gakka uses MLA. That's supposed to be our department's style. But it's also important to know how the Chicago style works. Basically, the Chicago style uses footnotes. So you get something like that. All right? Here's the information. It's actually a quotation. The sirens and the daughters of the sparrows and all the beasts of the field shall bless me. There's a little number 1 here. And that is down here, giving an explanation. It comes from this book written by these 3 people called the Ante-Nicene Fathers, by Roberts, Donaldson, and Cleveland Cox, and it's on page 492. Okay, that's where that information comes from. Okay, that's the Chicago way of doing it, and we use the MLA style. Okay, so you've got the little number there, you can see it. And that corresponds to that number there, and we get all the information necessary. Okay, so we can connect those two things. In MLA, how do they do it? They do it rather differently. It uses a list of works cited. So we might get something like this. Wallace 122. Wallace is the myoji of the person who wrote the paper. the family name, and 122 is the page of the paper. But that's not enough information, is it? Okay, and we've got another one here saying rig and 5. So rig, the first one is Wallace 122, the second one is rig, page 5. But it's not enough information. What is rig? Who is Wallace? We don't know. We need more details, so we put those details at the end of the paper. There's rig, okay, with the Myoji first, okay, so it's A, B, C, D, subite naranderu in alphabetical order, and there's Wallace, okay, and we can find them, and we can find the title of the paper or the book, and the publication details. We got all of that information, okay. That's all we have to do, really. We need to have references in that way, and we need to try to follow that basic structure. Does it sound terribly difficult? Not too bad, I hope. Okay? That's what we're aiming for. That's it. And contact me if you have any problems with it. In fact, I'm going to say every week from now on, I expect at least one email from everybody. Okay? To tell me about your progress, to tell me what's happening. Every week, one email. Okay? You can have 2 or 3 or 4 if you like, but at least one. Okay? So I know what's going on. Please take all of this seriously. Last year, all the students said, oh yes, we understand, yes, no problem. And then half of them gave me papers that were no good. I had to fail them. We did it as a mid-term paper, so by the end of term they caught up, but I had to fail them on their mid-term papers. They were all walking around like in a state of total panic. They said, what am I going to do? They thought they were quite good. Okay. Now, I'm not expecting that to happen this time because we've taken it more slowly, more step by step, and I think that you all understand what it is that I want. But do be careful, because if you give me the wrong thing and it's right at the end of term and you haven't emailed me or anything, if it's wrong, I might have to fail you. I don't want to fail you. Okay. I don't like failing people. All right. I don't think it's going to happen. I haven't seen anything that hints that I've got trouble with anybody, or that anybody has a problem. But please, kakunishitte kudasai, email me to make sure that what you're doing is in the right way. You can send me, you can say, I've written my introduction, or this is my outline, or this is my second argument. Is it okay? I don't understand how to do the reference for this website. Okay? Send me all the practical things and I'll help you, and we'll get it right so that the final result will be a high quality piece of work. Okay? Everybody happy? 1 or 2 of you are smiling. So, all right then. Let's leave it like that.